The Galactic Council had ruled the stars for 12,000 years. Hundreds of different species lived under its protection. They had treaties and agreements that promised safety for everyone. At least, that is what they said. Commander stood on the bridge of her ship, She was a woman of 45 years, with gray streaks in her black hair and tired eyes that had seen too much. She had served in the Earth Defense Fleet for 30 years. In that time, she had learned one terrible truth about the galaxy. The Council did not care about the weak. The distress signal came at midnight Earth time. Lieutenant, her young communications officer, put it on the main screen without being asked. He knew his commander would want to see it. The images showed a beautiful green world called Prime. It was a farming planet, home to 2 billion gentle beings called the. They had 4 arms, soft blue skin, and large eyes that always seemed to be smiling. They had never known war. They did not even have a word for murder in their language. Now they were dying. The Horde had come, watched the screen with a cold feeling in her stomach. There were monsters from the dark spaces between galaxies. They were part insect, part machine, and all hunger. They did not want to conquer. They did not want to rule. They only wanted to feed. On the screen, farmers ran through burning fields. Their 4 arms carried children, elders, whatever they could save. Behind them came the creatures of black metal and dripping acid. One man fell. Was on him in seconds. Looked away before seeing what happened next. She did not need to see. She had seen it before on 17 other worlds. "What is the Council saying?" she asked. Her voice was calm. She had learned to hide her anger long ago. His face was pale. He was only 23. This was his first encounter with Council justice. "They have declared Prime a contained loss, Commander. They are setting up a quarantine around the planet. No ships are allowed in or out." "No rescue ships." "No ships at all, Commander." Closed her eyes. Contained loss. Such clean words for such a dirty thing. The Council had decided that saving Prime was too expensive, too dangerous, too much trouble, so they would let 2 billion people die. They would watch from a safe distance as they ate everything on that world. Then they would move on and forget. This was the galaxy. This was how things worked. The bridge was silent. Every officer stood at their station, but no one moved. They were all waiting for to say something. She could feel their eyes on her back. "How long until the finish?" she asked. 3 weeks, said. "Maybe less. They have no weapons, no military, nothing to slow the Horde down." 3 weeks. 2 billion lives ended in 3 weeks, and the mighty Galactic Council would sit in their golden chambers and do nothing. Thought about her own daughter. She was 12 years old, safe on Earth, probably sleeping right now. What if it was Earth down there? What if it was human children running from monsters while the galaxy looked away? She knew the answer. The Council would do the same thing. They would make their calculations, check their numbers, and decide that Earth was not worth saving. "Open a channel to Earth High Command," said. "I want to speak with Admiral Park." Hesitated. "Commander, the Council has forbidden all intervention. If we contact High Command about this, we could be charged with conspiracy to violate galactic law." "Open the channel, Lieutenant." The young man swallowed hard. Then he did as he was told. Admiral Park appeared on screen within minutes. He was an old man with white hair and a face like carved stone. Had served under him for 20 years. She knew his story. His daughter had been on a colony world when the Council declared it a contained loss. He had begged them to let him save her. They had refused. She died with 10 million others while her father watched from orbit, forbidden to act. He knew why was calling. "I saw the distress signal," Park said. His voice was rough. "Prime. 2 billion people, Admiral. The Council is going to let them all die." "I know. I want authorization to intervene." There it was. The words hung in the air between them. Was asking permission to break galactic law, to defy the Council, to risk everything Earth had built in 80 years of galactic membership. Park was quiet for a long moment. On another screen, the images from Prime continued. A mother held her child as closed in around her. The child was crying. The mother was singing a soft song, trying to comfort her baby in their final moments. "The Council will punish us," Park said. "They might expel Earth from the protected species list. They might impose sanctions. They might even send a fleet to make an example of us." "I know, Admiral. Our people could die for this, not just soldiers, civilians, families." "I know," his voice cracked slightly. "But how can we call ourselves human if we let this happen? How can I face my daughter knowing I did nothing?" Park looked at the screen showing the mother. The singing had stopped. The screen went black. "You have 12 hours, Park said. "That is how long before the Council notices we have moved ships into the quarantine zone. After that, you are on your own." Felt something in her chest. It was not quite hope. It was something harder, sharper. It was purpose. 12 hours is enough, Admiral." Park leaned forward. "Save as many as you can. Show the galaxy what humans are made of." The channel closed. Turned to face her bridge crew. They were all looking at her now. Some were scared, some were confused, but in every eye she saw something else. A spark, a fire that had been waiting to burn. "You all heard," the Admiral said. "We are going to Prime. We are going to fight some of us will probably die." She paused. "Anyone who wants to leave, I will not stop you. This is not an order. This is a choice." No one moved. Was the first to speak. "My grandmother always said that doing the right thing is never the wrong choice. I am with you, Commander." One by one, the others nodded. Engineers, pilots, weapons officers, medics. Every single person on that bridge chose to stay. Smiled for the first time in months. "Then let us go save some lives. All hands prepare for emergency jump. Destination Prime." The turn toward the darkness. Behind them, Earth grew smaller and smaller. Ahead of them, a dying world waited. The Galactic Council believed that humans were weak, young, foolish. They believed that humanity would never risk its own safety for strangers. They were about to learn how wrong they were. In the cold reaches of space, a single ship carried a crew of 200 humans toward 2 billion souls who had given up hope. They did not know if they could win. They did not know if they would survive. But they knew one thing for certain. They would not stand by and watch. That was not the human way. The drop pods fell through the burning sky like metal rain. Captain sat in the lead pod, his hands gripping the safety rails as fire roared outside the small window. He was 38 years old, built like a mountain, with scars on his face from a dozen battles. He commanded the 77th Drop Infantry, a unit the other soldiers called the Grim Reapers. Around him, packed into the tiny space, were 5 of his best soldiers. They did not speak. They did not need to. They had done this together many times before. The pod shook violently as it punched through the clouds. Could see Prime now through the window. It had been a beautiful world once, with green forests and blue lakes that stretched for thousands of miles. Now half of it was on fire. Black smoke rose from burning cities. Even from this height, he could see the dark swarms of moving across the land. 30 seconds to landing, the pod's computer announced. Looked at his soldiers. There was Sergeant, a woman with cold eyes and quick hands who had grown up fighting in the streets of Seoul. There was Private, barely 20 years old, holding his rifle so tight his knuckles were white. There were the twins, Sara and identical in face but different in everything else. Sara was loud and laughed before every battle, was silent and prayed. And there was Corporal Minu, the oldest man in the squad at 45. He had a wife on Earth, 3 children, and a small restaurant he was supposed to retire to next year. He had volunteered for this mission anyway. "Listen up," said as the pod screamed downward. "The galaxy has decided these people are not worth saving. We are here to prove the galaxy wrong. Rules are simple. Protect the civilians. Kill the, do not die if you can help it. And if we cannot help it, asked, his voice shook only a little. Smiled grimly, then make sure you take plenty of them with you. The pod hit the ground with a crash that rattled teeth. The doors blew open and he was moving before the smoke cleared, rifle up, eyes scanning for targets. They had landed in what used to be a city square. Buildings rose on all sides, most of them damaged or destroyed. Bodies lay everywhere who had not escaped in time. The smell was terrible, a mix of burning and something worse. And there were. The creatures turned toward the pod, their sensor eyes glowing red in the smoke. They were the size of large dogs, with 6 legs and bodies covered in black metal plates. Their mouths were circles of spinning teeth. Acid dripped from their jaws, burning holes in the stone ground. Contact front, shouted and opened fire. The battle was chaos and noise and death. Moved through it like water, his body doing what 30 years of training had taught it. Aim, fire, move. Aim, fire, move. Fell in pieces around him. More came to replace them, always more. Went down with a scream. A head grabbed his leg, its acid burning through his armor. Was there in seconds, putting 3 rounds through the creature's head, then dragging the young man behind cover. I can still fight, gasped, his face white with pain. Then fight, shoved a rifle into his hands and turned back to the battle. They pushed forward through the streets, leaving dead behind them. Other drop pods were landing now across the city. The 77th was not alone. Commander had brought every soldier she could gather, nearly 2,000 humans against a horde that numbered in the millions. It should have been impossible. It should have been suicide. But they had never fought humans before. Was the first to run out of ammunition. She did not stop fighting. She picked up a piece of broken metal from a destroyed building and used it as a club. When that broke, she used her fists. A lunged at her face and she headbutted it, cracking its sensor eyes, then stomped on its body until it stopped moving. An elderly watched from the doorway of a ruined home. He had never seen anything like this. His people did not fight. They did not know how. For thousands of years, they had relied on the Council's protection. The Council had abandoned them. These strange 2-armed creatures had not. Finished killing thee and turned toward the elder. She was covered in black ichor, breathing hard, bleeding from a cut on her forehead. She looked like a demon from the old stories. Then she smiled, soft and gentle, and her whole face changed. "Hello, grandfather," she said in broken. She had learned a few words on the flight over. "You are safe now. We are here to help." The elder did not have words for what he felt. Later, his people would create a new word. They would call it Terran kindness. It meant the strange human way of being gentle and terrible at the same time. Captain regrouped his squad in a small park. The trees were burned but still standing. Around them, human soldiers were setting up defensive positions, helping refugees reach safety zones, treating the wounded. They had cleared 3 city blocks. It had cost them 40 soldiers dead, 100 wounded, and the horde was still coming. "Captain, we have movement on the north side," Minu reported. "Big movement, looks like thousands of them." Looked north. He could see the dark wave approaching, beyond counting, flowing between the buildings like a black flood. He did not feel fear. He was too tired for fear. "All units fall back to secondary positions. Protect the refugee column." "Sir, if we fall back, we lose everything we gained." "We did not come here to hold ground, Corporal. We came here to save people. The people are heading south, so we hold the north until they are safe." The soldiers moved without argument. They trusted with their lives. He had never given them reason not to. As the wave crashed against the human lines, thought about his daughter on Earth. She was 14, smart and stubborn, and she had cried when he left. He had promised her he would come home. He intended to keep that promise. But first, he had 2 billion people to save. Behind the human lines, families fled toward the landing zones where human ships waited. Parents carried children. The young carried the old. They moved in silence, too shocked to speak, too grateful to cry. A young girl stopped and looked back at the fighting. She saw human soldiers standing against the impossible darkness, buying time with their blood. "Mama," she said, "why are they helping us? They do not even know us." Her mother pulled her forward, toward safety, toward life. "I do not know, little one, but we will remember this, forever." The battle raged through the night. Dawn came red and smoky over Prime. The wave had broken against the human lines. The refugee column had escaped. But the war was just beginning. On the bridge of the commander received reports from the surface. Thousands saved, hundreds of her soldiers dead, and they were gathering for another attack, bigger than before. She had 12 hours before the council noticed. She would need every minute. Ambassador had never felt so alone. She stood in the center of the great chamber, the most important room in the entire galaxy. The walls rose hundreds of meters above her, covered in gold and silver and metals that had no name in human language. Floating platforms held representatives from 400 different species. Some were made of living crystal. Some were clouds of thinking gas. Some were so old they had watched stars be born and die. All of them were angry at her. Was 52 years old, small and thin, with gray hair pulled back in a simple style. She wore the black uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps. She carried no weapons, no shields, nothing but her words. Against the fury of the galaxy, words would have to be enough. "Earth has violated the sacred laws of the Council," the eldest announced. Its voice was like grinding stone. The eldest was a being of living rock, older than human civilization, the leader of the Council for the past 3,000 years. "Your species sent military forces into a quarantine zone. Your soldiers are fighting the Horde on Prime. This is a crime against galactic order." Looked up at the floating platforms, so many eyes watching her, so many minds judging her. "The Council declared 2 billion innocent people a contained loss," she said. Her voice was calm and clear. "We refuse to accept that." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. No species had ever spoken to the eldest this way. Certainly not a species as young and weak as humanity. "Your refusal means nothing," a crystal being chimed. Its body caught the light, throwing rainbows across the walls. "The law is the law. You were told when Earth joined the Council that interference without authorization would result in punishment. You agreed to these terms." "We agreed because we had no choice. We were young and alone and afraid. We needed your protection." "And now you think you do not need it." The eldest leaned forward, its rocky face showing something like amusement. "Earth is a small world with limited resources. Your fleet is tiny compared to Council forces. Your species has existed for barely a moment in galactic time. What makes you think you can survive without us?" Thought about the messages she had received that morning. Captain's squad holding the line against thousands of. Commander's fleet evacuating refugees under constant attack. Soldiers dying with smiles on their faces because they were dying for something good. "We would rather die as humans than live as cowards," she said. The chamber fell silent. Continued, her voice growing stronger. "In the 80 years since Earth joined the Council, we have watched you abandon 31 worlds. We have watched you calculate which lives were worth saving and which could be thrown away. We have watched children burn while you sat in your golden chambers and did nothing. We saved trillions of lives through our wisdom," the eldest said. "We made hard choices so that the greater good could survive." "The greater good," laughed, and the sound echoed through the chamber like a weapon. "Tell me, eldest, how do you measure the greater good? How many children must die before the number becomes too high? How many worlds must burn before you feel ashamed?" "You cannot understand. You are too young, too emotional, too human." "Yes," agreed. "We are human, And that is why we could not stand by while they died. That is why we will never stand by, no matter what you do to us." She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small device. It projected an image into the air above her head, large enough for everyone in the chamber to see. It showed a child being carried by a human soldier. The soldier was wounded, barely able to walk, but she kept moving, kept carrying that child toward safety while swarmed behind her. "This is who we are," said. "This is what humans do. We help, even when it hurts, even when it kills us, even when the whole galaxy tells us to stop." The eldest stared at the image for a long moment. Then its stone face hardened. "Sentiment," it said. "Nothing but sentiment. The Council will not be moved by pictures of suffering. We have seen too much suffering to be moved by anything." "Then I feel sorry for you." Before the eldest could respond, the great doors at the end of the chamber opened. Admiral Park walked in, flanked by 2 honor guards in full combat armor. The armor was still stained with blood and ichor from Prime. The chamber erupted in noise. Council species shouted and hissed and hummed their outrage. Military officers were forbidden in the great chamber. This was an insult beyond words. Park ignored them all. He walked to stand beside his old bones straight, his eyes cold. "I bring a message from Earth," he announced. His voice was quiet, but somehow it silenced the entire chamber. "As of 6 hours ago, human forces have defeated the presence on Prime. 2 billion civilians are alive because of our intervention." Silence, complete and total silence. "Furthermore," Park continued, "Earth formally withdraws from the Galactic Council. We will no longer follow your laws. We will no longer accept your judgment. We will no longer pretend that you are worthy of our respect." The eldest rose from its seat, stone grinding against stone. "You cannot survive alone. The galaxy is dangerous. Without our protection, Earth will fall." Park smiled grimly. "Then we will fall, but we will fall as ourselves, not as your obedient servants." He turned to leave, walked beside him, her heart pounding but her face calm. Behind them, the council exploded into chaos. Species argued with species. Alliances that had lasted began to crack. Some demanded immediate military action against Earth. Others whispered that perhaps the humans had a point. In the confusion, one small voice went unnoticed. The ambassador, a gentle being with 4 arms and sad eyes, slipped away from his platform. He had a message to send to his government. The humans had saved his people. Now his people would stand with the humans. Whatever came next. As and Park walked through the council station's corridors, other species watched them pass. Some looked at them with hatred. Some looked at them with fear. But a few, just a few, looked at them with something else. Hope. Noticed a young being, a member of a species called the. They were small, furry, often ignored by the greater powers. They had lost there to pirates a decade ago. Earth had sent ships to help when the council refused. The young caught's eye. It raised one small hand in a gesture she had seen before. A salute. Nodded back. The galaxy was vast and old and full of beings who had forgotten how to care. But maybe, just maybe, humans could remind them. Maybe that was what being human meant. Not strength, not power, not technology. Just the simple, stubborn refusal to give up on each other. The Council expected Earth to break. Without galactic trade, humans would starve. Without advanced technology, human ships would fail. Without the Council's protection, human worlds would fall to pirates and raiders and all the dark things that lurked between the stars. That is what the Council believed. They had seen it happen before with other rebellious species. Pride led to defiance. Defiance led to isolation. Isolation led to death. But the Council did not understand humans. General stood on the bridge of the battleship Iron Dawn, looking at a map of the galaxy. She was 60 years old, with white hair cut short, and a face that showed every year of her hard life. She had retired twice and been called back twice. Some soldiers were too good to let go. "Show me the movements," she said. The map changed. Red dots appeared across 100 star systems, spreading outward from the dead worlds the Horde had already consumed. The dots were moving toward the Council's inner territories. "They will reach the Council's core worlds in 3 months," her aide reported. "Maybe less if they find more food along the way." And what is the Council doing about it? Evacuating their leadership to secure locations, setting up quarantine zones around threatened systems, the usual. Shook her head. The Council never changed. They would sacrifice 1,000 worlds to save their own comfort. They would watch billions die and call it wisdom. What about the civilian populations? "No evacuation orders for civilians, General. They are considered," the aide paused, "acceptable losses." There were those words again. Had heard them too many times in her life. "Open a channel to every Council world in this path," she said. "Tell them that the Terran Alliance offers protection to any species that requests it. We will not ask for payment. We will not ask for loyalty. We will only ask that they remember who came to help when their own government abandoned them." "General, the Council will see this as an act of war." "The Council can see it however they like. Those people deserve a chance to live." Within 1 week, 47 Council worlds had requested Alliance protection. The Terran Alliance was a new thing born from Earth's defiance. They had joined first, grateful beyond words for what humans had done. Others followed quickly. They brought their engineering skills. The hollow, artificial beings the Council had classified as property rather than people brought their tireless labor and fierce loyalty. A dozen other species joined, all of them survivors of Council abandonment. Together, they built a fleet. Private First Class did not feel like a hero. She was 19 years old, scared most of the time, and still not entirely sure why she had joined the military. Her parents had wanted her to be a doctor. Her teachers had said she was smart enough for anything. Instead, she stood on the walls of a Council city, defending people who had voted to let Earth die. The city was called Harmony, which thought was a funny name for a place so full of fear. The Council species who lived here were called the beings made of soft light who had never known violence. They had supported the Council's sanctions against Earth. They had cheered when the eldest called humanity a threat to galactic order. Now they were coming, and the Council had abandoned them. A small child approached position on the wall. The child glowed pale blue, flickering with fear. "Why are you here?" the child asked. "Your people hate us." Looked down at the child. She thought about all the things she could say. She thought about justice and revenge and the satisfaction of watching her enemies suffer. But that was not why she was here. "My grandmother used to tell me something," said. "She said that being kind to people who hurt you is not weakness. It is proof that they could not make you like them." The child did not respond. Maybe it did not understand. Children were different from human children, born knowing things that took humans years to learn. But some things could not be known. Some things had to be felt. They came at sunset. Had never seen so many of them. They poured across the fields outside the city like a black flood, millions of hungry bodies moving as one. The sound they made was like nothing she could describe. A grinding, clicking, screaming noise that seemed to come from everywhere at once. The human soldiers on the walls opened fire. Plasma rifles lit up the evening sky, fell in waves, but more kept coming, always more. A reached the top of the wall nearest position. She killed it with her rifle. Another came. She killed that one too. Her rifle overheated. She grabbed a fallen soldier's weapon and kept firing. Beside her, a soldier tried to help. They had no weapons training, no combat experience, no idea what they were doing. But they tried anyway. "Get behind me," shouted. The soldier shook its head. "This is our home, we will defend it." It raised a makeshift weapon, a piece of metal tied to a stick, lunged at it. The swung and missed. Shot did not miss. "Stay close to me," she said. "I will protect you." The looked at her with something like wonder. "Why? We did nothing when your people needed help. We celebrated when the council punished Earth." "I know." "Then why?" "Killed another." Her arms ached. Her head pounded. She could feel blood running down her face from a cut she did not remember getting. "Because this is who we are," she said. "We help, even when it hurts, even when it makes no sense. That is the human way." The battle lasted 3 days. When it was over, the city of Harmony still stood. Half the human soldiers who had defended it were dead or wounded. The population had survived almost entirely intact. The council, watching from their safe locations, could not believe what they were seeing. Humans were dying to save species that had betrayed them. Humans were spending their own blood like water to protect strangers. It made no sense. It all logic and calculation. And it was changing everything. On dozens of worlds, species that had supported the council began to whisper. They watched the reports from Harmony and Prime and 100 other battlefields. They saw humans standing against the darkness, not for power or profit, but simply because someone needed help. Maybe some of them thought we were wrong about Earth. Maybe kindness is not weakness. Maybe the humans know something we have forgotten. General received the casualty reports on her bridge. 4,000 dead in the past month. 10,000 wounded. The Alliance was bleeding itself dry trying to save a galaxy that had tried to destroy it. "General," her aide said quietly, "some of the officers are asking if this is worth it. We are losing so many people to protect our enemies." Looked at the map. So many red dots, so many worlds in danger, so many lives hanging by a thread. "When I was young," she said, "my mother told me a story. There was once a woman who found a frozen snake on the road. She knew the snake was dangerous. She knew it might bite her, but she could not leave it there to die. So she picked it up, warmed it by her fire, and nursed it back to health." "What happened?" "The snake bit her," smiled sadly. "My mother asked me what the lesson was. I said the lesson was not to trust snakes. She said no. The lesson was that you cannot control what others do. You can only control what you do. The woman chose kindness. The snake chose betrayal, but only the woman could live with her choice." The aide was quiet for a long moment. "So we keep fighting?" he asked. "We keep fighting," agreed. "Not because they deserve it, but because we would not be us if we stopped." Somewhere in the darkness between stars, the Horde grew stronger. It fed on dead worlds and built its forces. It was preparing for the final battle, the assault that would break the heart of the galaxy. The humans knew it was coming. They would be ready. The final battle came on a Tuesday. Admiral stood on the bridge of her new flagship, the Eternal Kindness. It was the largest ship ever built by the Terran Alliance, designed by engineers and crewed by 17 different species. 3 years ago had commanded a single ship. Now she commanded a fleet of 2,000. It would not be enough. The Horde emerged from hyperspace like a nightmare becoming real. There were millions of them, individual creatures linked together in swarms that moved like living clouds, and at the center of the Horde was the Queen. The Queen was the size of a small moon. Her body was a mountain of black metal and organic tissue, constantly shifting, constantly growing. She was the heart of the Horde, the mind that controlled every in existence, and she was birthing new combat forms by the thousand, adding to her army with every passing second. "All ships form defensive line," ordered. Her voice was calm. She had learned to hide her fear long ago. "Protect the civilian evacuation routes. Do not let the through." The battle began. Captain watched from the bridge of his carrier, the Unbroken. He was 41 now, gray in his hair, scars on his scars. He had survived Prime and 100 battles after. His daughter, now 17, had sent him a message that morning. She said she was proud of him. She said she loved him. He kept the message playing on a loop in his earpiece. "Captain, the Queen's escort is breaking through our left flank. Move us to intercept. All fighters launch." The Unbroken surged forward. Human pilots in small attack craft swarmed out of its hangars, throwing themselves at with desperate courage. Each pilot knew the odds. Each pilot flew anyway. Sargent was on the ground, leading troops on one of the Council's core worlds. They had landed shock troops there, trying to establish a foothold behind the Alliance lines. Was not going to let them. She was 40 years old now, her hair streaked with white, her body covered in scars. She had been offered promotions, desk jobs, comfortable postings far from the fighting. She had refused them all. This was where she belonged. "Push them back," she shouted, firing her rifle until it glowed red. "No retreat, no surrender." Around her, soldiers from a dozen species fought side by side. Humans and even some former Council species who had changed sides when they saw what Earth was willing to sacrifice. They were bleeding together, dying together, living together. A young soldier fell beside, wounded badly. She grabbed him and dragged him behind cover, just as she had been dragged by others so many times before. "Hold on," she told him. "Help is coming." They looked up at her with pain-filled eyes. Why do humans always say that, even when there is no hope? Smiled. It was the same smile she had given to the Elder on Prime, all those years ago. Because sometimes saying it makes it true. In space, the battle was going badly. The Queen's regeneration was faster than anything the Alliance had ever seen. They poured fire into her body, blasting away huge chunks of metal and flesh. She healed within minutes. Her combat forms were endless, pouring from her birthing chambers in waves that never stopped. "Admiral, we are losing ships faster than we can replace them," Aide reported. His voice was steady, but his hands were shaking. "At this rate, we will be destroyed within hours." Looked at the tactical display. So many blue dots representing Alliance ships, so many of them winking out, dying in the darkness. She thought about her daughter, now 15 and already talking about joining the fleet. She thought about her crew, people who had trusted her with their lives. She thought about all the species in the galaxy who were watching this battle, wondering if there was any hope left. "The Queen is the key," she said. "If we destroy her, the Horde will collapse." "We have tried, Admiral. Her regeneration is too fast." "Then we need to destroy her from the inside." A cold silence fell over the bridge. Everyone knew what that meant. Captain's voice came over the communication channel. "Admiral, I have an idea." Closed her eyes. She knew what he was going to say before he said it. "The Unbroken has enough firepower to destroy the Queen, but only if we detonate the reactor core inside her body. I can fly the ship into her maw. If we explode inside her, she cannot regenerate. That is a suicide mission." "I know." His hands gripped the arms of her command chair until her knuckles went white. She had known for 15 years. She had watched him grow from a young soldier into a hero. She had held his daughter when she was a baby. "There must be another way." "There is not." His voice was gentle. "Admiral, I have lived a good life. I have done things I am proud of. Let me do one more." "Your daughter will understand. She is her father's child." A pause. "Tell her I was thinking about her. Tell her I love her. Tell her to be brave." Could not speak. Tears ran down her face, and she did not try to hide them. "It has been an honor serving with you," Admiral said. "Now let me save the galaxy." The Unbroken turned toward the Queen. They swarmed it, millions of them, tearing at its hull, trying to stop it. On board, crew members fought them off deck by deck, buying their captain the seconds he needed. Humans and aliens died side by side in the corridors, holding the line until the very end. Sat alone on the bridge, watching the Queen grow larger and larger in his. Her maw was open, a vast cave of teeth and darkness. He pressed play on his daughter's message one more time. "I love you, Dad. Come home safe." "I love you too," he whispered. The Unbroken entered the Queen's mouth. The explosion lit up the galaxy. When the light faded, the Queen was dead. Her body drifted in pieces through the void, and the Horde, suddenly without its guiding mind, fell into chaos. They turned on each other, attacked randomly, died in confused swarms. The Alliance fleet swept in and finished them. The battle was over, the war was won. 3 years later, the galaxy was a different place. The Galactic Council no longer existed. In its place stood the Galactic Assembly, a new government founded on a principle that humans had taught the universe. No one is an acceptable loss. Admiral stood before the assembly, older now, tired but unbroken. She had not wanted to give this speech. She did not feel like a hero. She felt like a woman who had watched too many friends die. But someone had to say the words. "We are not heroes," she said, her voice echoing through the great chamber. "We are just a species that could not watch others suffer without trying to help. Every world in this chamber has that same capacity. You forgot it. We are here to remind you." On Prime, a statue stood in the central plaza. It showed a human soldier carrying a child. The inscription at its base was simple. "They came when no one else would." Across the galaxy, in 100 languages, the story was told of a young species, small and fragile, who looked at a universe of cold calculations and said no, who chose kindness over safety, who died for strangers. And slowly, one world at a time, the universe began to change. In a small house on Earth, a young woman named stood before a window, looking at the stars. She wore a military uniform now, having joined the fleet as her father had known she would. On her desk sat a medal, awarded to her father after the Battle of the Nexus. She did not look at it often. She did not need to. She remembered him every day. She thought about what he had taught her, not with words but with his life, with his choices. Being human meant helping, even when it hurt. It meant standing up, even when everyone else sat down. It meant believing in others, even when they did not believe in themselves. Looked at the stars and smiled. Somewhere out there, the galaxy was learning to be kind. Her father had shown them how. And she would carry on his work. Forever,